Hello, good evening and good night, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another scene at Reno. Cameron Forsythe is standing outside the newly erected memorial garden that he commissioned to honour the brave men and women of Reno's emergency services. He is looking at the gardens through the large wrought iron gates with a couple of his security guards outside. And as he looks around briefly with a sense of pride about his accomplishment, he is waiting for Prince Alvarez to come so that the two can talk in a private yet open environment, and so that he can hopefully get the prince's blessing for the garden that he plans to open to the public in the morning the next day.
Cameron Forsythe waits for several minutes before the prince's car arrives. Driven by the prince's ghoul that many members of the court are becoming so familiar with these passing nights. The door is opened and the prince steps out. He's dressed differently from normal. He's no longer adorned in the robes of a priest. He's dressed out like more similar to Cameron in that regard, more similar to a businessman almost. A fine suit, tie. He sees Mr. Forsythe by the entrance to the park, and he smiles and begins to walk up to him.
On hearing the vehicle arrive, Cameron turns to face the prince, and he smiles, a fairly genuine smile compared to his usual fake flash smile, and he extends his gloved hand to shake it with the prince whilst also nodding respectfully.
The prince accepts Cameron's gesture and they shake hands before the gates. The prince says, "Good evening, Cameron. How has your night been so far?"
Very well so far, my prince. Thank you for asking. I believe that the gardeners have laid the last of the turf and the last of the various flowers in the garden. I thought that this would be as good a place as any for us to have a private walk and discussion at the same time. He turns and nods to the two guards, and one of them reaches into his pocket and unlocks the large padlock that still holds the gates closed. And as the gates are opened, you can see the rather large garden laid before them. There is a statue in the middle of the garden with a motif of a fireman, a police officer, and a paramedic, all standing in a semi-heroic pose. There's gravel pathways that meander throughout the turfed areas, and there are also many flower beds and also some small night lights at ground level that illuminate the whole of the garden. And with the gates open, he gestures for the prince to enter along with him.
The prince smiles, impressed by this verdant memorial that Mr. Forsythe has been building. Before he goes with him, he turns to his ghoul and just nods his head. The ghoul nods in response and proceeds to get within the car, but does not leave. The prince then walks beside Mr. Forsythe as the two enter the gardens.
As they walk in, the door is closed behind them, although it isn't locked, and one of the guards remains on the inside with the second guard on the outside. and as they walk, you can hear the gravel crunching underfoot. Cameron turns to Prince Alvarez and says, I got your message. I understand that the two biggest threats to our city are currently quashed. Am I correct?
Yes, the trouble has passed for now, and the reports we're getting back are very positive so far. With any luck, things will be returning to as they were in a better time very shortly.
I'm glad to hear it, although please forgive my impertinence for asking, but I would like to know what has happened with Mr. Graves. I was to understand that he would be brought to finally answer for his crimes after the issue was dealt with, but I haven't heard anything about there being any kind of public declaration as to what happened with Mr. Graves. Tell me what fate has befallen him, if anything, or are we to expect perhaps a more public scene to draw a line under this issue with Mr. Graves?
My ruling for the unfortunate Mr. Graves was that upon his either success or failure at banishing, well, at getting rid of the transgressor who's been causing chaos in the city, his success would mean he would be exiled from Reno permanently. His failure, well, his failure would mean he would be fired, as it were. However, upon succeeding, he chose his form of exile in, well, walking out into the desert to greet the sun, as it were. It seems that the fight took more out of him than was understood.
You notice that Cameron is paying a great deal of attention to the prince as he speaks about this. I'm going to make a roll once I've got my character sheet up, just to see if he can detect any kind of deception on the prince's face or in his voice. So I'm going to roll perception and empathy,
In
I
that
think.
case, I would give it a -2, since I don't have my computer up and running. I don't want to have you roll twice. So let's just say that he's, in the zone right now.
Okay. Do I still get my +2 for status? And so just count that as cancelled
Yeah,
out.
I'll say they just sort of cancel each other out, yeah.
Okay, so that will be 1, 2, 3, 5 dice. Right. Sorry, just bear with me when I open up dice roll now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
Nice.
successes.
Very good. Despite the prince's effort, it's plain to see that he is very, very annoyed with how the Graves incident ended. You get the feeling that the prince would have wanted something more final himself, something to showcase that justice had been done and the prince's edict had been obeyed to the fullest, but because Graves opted to walk into the sun on his own, since there's no way to prove whether or not he is still alive or dead, the prince has nothing substantial to present to the court, and it is irritating him immensely.
Cameron will himself, he will keep his usual straight face. He won't give any outward sign of how he feels, though obviously if you want to roll as well to see how Cameron feels about this, more than welcome to.
Sure. In that case, that would be 4. No. It would be 5, and you said plus status, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously the prince. I'm a ancilla, so you would get your status bonuses from that.
I think
I've
that
got
would be
nothing
10
extra.
dice. Do you want to put any minuses so that way you don't have to roll as well? I'm
Let me
good for the
just
-2, or -3, since Cameron's better at hiding his emotions than most. We'll just say 7 dice for the prince.
7 dice. Okay.
Mhm.
You want me to roll it?
Ah, yes. I don't have access to the dice rollers since I'm using the bad laptop.
Okay. So you've got, there's a 1. So that will count. You've got 1, 2, 3 successes there.
Sorry.
So you see that although Cameron is putting his best face on it, he seems to share your irritation at the fact that although you said the matter is closed successfully, he seems to share your irritation at the fact that Graves hasn't been definitively dealt with in kindred public sense. But he seems more to, as I said, keep a straight face on it and doesn't say anything, but just nods. But you get the feeling that he is disappointed at the way that this wasn't handled in the way that he would have liked as well. He carries on walking with you through the garden. He stops and bends down to some of the newly planted roses and picks a couple of the roses from the bed, and he smells one himself and offers one to the prince as he puts one in his lapel.
The prince will smile, and he will will himself to smell the fragrance of the rose. And he'll say to Mr. Forsythe in a manner to change the subject that they're both quite irritated about. The roses of the city have quite come into bloom recently, though, have they not? I have not seen such hues and colors in a long time. It is a very, very good change of pace.
Cameron smiles, understanding the undertones of the prince's comment. He says, "Yes, indeed, I've heard much of the roses of our fair city." But he thinks quietly for a moment and thinks, "Well, as you know, my prince, I have uh, I have known of Miss Tavularis and heard some stories of her abilities. It would seem that you made a good choice in picking her to bring this matter to an end. Tell me, my prince, the other matter, these hunters, what was the final outcome for those individuals?"
The prince will sigh and say, "The hunters and our beloved Rose ended up proving to be erstwhile allies. I suppose the old adage, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, proved to be true in this instance, for they assisted in containing the intruder. I believe they did take heavy casualties, though, which is not unwelcome. They have left the city under the promise they had larger prey to hunt elsewhere. Whether or not that remains true, I shall be having Mr. Voltaire look into that very soon. As soon as he shows up with his next report, that is. You know how the Nosferatu can be sometimes."
Again, if you want to, you can make a roll on this to see if you can ascertain Cameron's reaction to that. Same number of dice?
Say 7 dice then. Mhm. Ooh.
Yeah, you did well. 2, 4, 6. Okay, yeah, it's very apparent that whereas before Cameron was slightly annoyed by the fact that Graves is missing, presumed absent, he appears to be very angry at the fact that the hunters are again missing, presumed gone. To try and hide this to some extent, he again turns around and appears to be playing with some of the flowers to make them look a bit more aesthetic. But what he actually does is he will break one of the stems in his anger and try and hide it. But as I said, not very well.
The prince will smile. He will say, hunters are always a tricky predicament because, unlike ourselves, there's no tell. They are completely indistinguishable from the herd until they strike. The only silver lining is that at least we know who their leader is. And rest assured, I will be keeping an eye on this Father Vic for as long as his mortal life remains.
Cameron will turn round. He won't look angry, but he'll have a very serious look on his face. My prince, again, forgive my impertinence, but would it not have been more safe for our future to, once they had served their purpose, consider eliminating the threat for once and for all? They may have left for now hunting bigger prey, but as you say, if they return having accomplished their previous mission, we may ourselves find us facing the same enemy for a second time, unnecessarily, in my opinion.
The prince will frown and say, as unfortunate as it would have been, it ended up being a judgment call on our agents at the church. I do not hold it against them to stay their hand. It would have been very prudent and it would have eliminated any future headaches we could have had. But then he pauses for a minute, thinking about how he would explain this to Cameron, since Cameron has always been more of a logical mind. He'll then settle upon, after what I heard transpired at the church, I do not blame them. The creature, as he lowers his voice at saying that, was far more powerful than we originally anticipated, and there was a good chance that they might not have succeeded, if anything could have gone out of place. In this case, the only silver lining is that we did eliminate the greater threat permanently.
Cameron will nod. He can see the logic of your argument, and he will again breathe deeply while enjoying the smell of the fresh roses. And he will look to you and say, forgive me, my prince, but I have always been a key and avid supporter of the idea that loose ends can come back and hang you. And therefore I like to tie up loose ends where possible. The opportunity may have been missed, but if, as you say, the sheriff will be keeping an eye on it, I trust Mr. Voltaire to be as astute and preemptive as he can be in dealing with this. But with both of these issues resolved as best they can be, I think that with your permission, it would be a good time to lift the restrictions on the domains and people's mobility around the city. And I would argue as well that perhaps it would be appropriate to have some kind of celebration and inject a little bit of good cheer into the kindred of our city. I understand perhaps there may be new kindred as well.
As the prince says, once again, you and I are of the same logic. We do need the diligent kindred who have upheld the masquerade and had patiently followed all of the restrictions placed so that we could better protect all of us. A little chance to cut loose. That is one of the reasons why I have come to you this evening, Cameron. You are Keeper of Elysium, after all, as well as the Archicurate. Not only is learning about the state of our city important, but we also need to attend to the spirit of the city, and I believe it is time that we had a proper Elysium, one in which the court is present.
Do you have a preferred location for this Elysium? After all, it's only appropriate that the first Elysium be the Prince's Elysium, and I, of course, will put my casino at your disposal for this if you think that you would like to use the Tangier, although there are other areas that would be appropriate.
I think that would be best. Consider it an honor. You have done a very excellent job as Archicurate, and I am grateful for the assistance. We will have the meeting of the court in the Tangier Casino. I will leave the specifications to you. Just make sure you run them by me beforehand.
Cameron nods and says, I think I can have an Elysium arranged. I will make the necessary arrangements and let you know as soon as possible. If you wish the court only to be in attendance, are there any individuals that you would prefer not to attend?
The prince actually can think of a few, but he will smile and say, no, it will be good for the whole city to come together. A unified Camarilla Elysium, one where we can breathe easily again, as it were. That, and it will be good to hear from the members of the city. There is much to do, very much to do these upcoming nights.
Perhaps it would be, although she is not, to my knowledge, technically a member of the court, it would be wise to invite Miss Tavalaris and those involved in resolving the Graves issue there as, shall we say, VIPs, guests of honor, perhaps?
I like the way you're thinking. Yes, we must give honor and praise to those who selflessly took up arms to defend our city and the masquerade in this time of darkness.
I will think up a
capable hands. Is the prince's smile.
Cameron will nod, and he's already thinking as they talk of ways to organize this at short notice and try and get it going as soon as possible. He also turns to you almost as if remembering something and says, there was one other thing that you should be made aware of. Mr. Innocenti actually had a wise idea, he says, almost with a sarcastic tone to his voice. He has suggested to myself and the seneschal that safe houses be made available to the kindred of the city. In order to do this, we will need time to locate certain places that will be safe and secure, and also in locations that will prove difficult to find, suburban areas, places outside of the city itself, but still within suitable distance to make sure that they are reachable. I plan to locate these with the assistance of any other members, and I will put their control, with your permission, under my jurisdiction as Archcurate.
Very good. I'm a little curious as to why Mr. Innocenti would ask such a thing. It is normally not the Harpy's place to put forth those suggestions, but I will not hold it against him. He is, well, he is one of the Roses.
He did not ask for this, he merely suggested it, and I agreed with him it was a good idea. As I said, I was a little surprised, actually, that this was something that I myself and the Seneschal had not thought of first. But good ideas come from even the most unlikely of places. And as I said, Mr. Innocenti has actually done himself some credit by putting forward a logical and well thought out idea.
The principal smile, actually picking up something there that he is a little suspicious about. He will, well, then I am glad to hear that. As he will look around the garden, I'm assuming that they're by the gazebo in the picture now, at least.
Yes.
Looking out over the lush expanse. He will say, "Tell me, what is your opinion of our dear Seneschal?"
The Seneschal, he is a businessman, and that appeals to me. He is a man of good character, as far as I can tell. He has never proven one to act against logic. That appeals to me. You can make a roll if you want to pick up if there's anything else.
Oh, yeah.
Same pool again?
No, he's not going to use the status because this is more of a not manipulation. This is, oh yeah, I guess status work then. In that case, give me 6 this time because I'm assuming Cameron's going to want to really try and hide this.
Yes, I will try and hide it. So 7 dice again for you?
No, 6. I'll give you the plus for hiding it.
Okay, so you get, oh shit. 1, 2,
Oh
3, 4. You get 5, so we'll remember that. And I'm going to try and hide it. So that will be for me. It's best to hide something. Would it be manipulation
Like
and?
manipulation, subterfuge.
Oh, so that's going to be a crap roll for me. But I still get my +2 for status, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 for me. Oh damn! It was looking so good. So I get 3. So you beat me by 2. What he's saying is true, but he's definitely keeping something behind his comments. What he's saying about him being logical and appealing to him appears to be genuine, but he's not giving you the full story.
As the prince might have feared, he will smile. He'll say nothing on it, as he'll say, "Mr. Falcon has proven to be a very astute businessman in these times of trouble. Always looking to ensure that the Princeton is able to not only not take any losses, but to profit from the situation. It is refreshing to have such an individual as he as the head advisor.
He and I
He's able
share.
to.
Sorry, after you.
Is,
He looks at the prince again. When this, he says, he and I both share one very common thread of thought. We both believe that the only way that the kindred of this city thrive is if we focus our energy towards safeguarding the city. And he puts a lot of emphasis on the last part of that sentence, the city.
oh yeah, he's going to roll another roll then for that. This time 7, since he's sort of opened the door to that.
7, okay. Wow. 2, 3, 4,
Yeah,
5,
normal
6.
minus is gone since he sort of just started to see through that mask you were putting on. Oh my goodness.
And yeah, Cameron even isn't going to hide. He means this sentence quite truthfully.
As he smiles, says, "Then it is good. I have made the right decisions on who is members of the court." As he again looked out over the verdant expanse. "You've done an excellent job, Cameron. Night by night, you are proving yourself a worthy choice for this position. I hope that when things go back to normal, you will consider having a more prominent role within the court than your previous status. Someone with your skill, your foresight, as it were, should be able to ply their trade more freely without all of the chain of command that you had to endure before."
Cameron will nod and he'll sit down on one of the benches on in the gazebo. I would not be adverse to another position. I'm quite happy with my role currently, but if the city needs me elsewhere, I will understand if you wish to appoint me to another role. But I am an administrator, my prince. I am not one of these Bruja that you hear about in the Anarchs or the other Bruja of the Camarilla who solve problems using these, he says, holding up his fist. I prefer to attack a problem using this.
That is why you're invaluable as the Archcurate. You now have all of the means at your disposal to attack the enemies of the city as well. There is a reason why I chose you and Miss Blackmoon as the first kindred to have high positions in this crucible experiment. It is because you two make sure the enemies of the city do not remain standing, as this has proven. Those who are worthy should have positions of power. That is the one ideology I share with From.
Cameron will stand and he'll hear a faint buzzing in his pocket. He'll pull out his phone, almost looking a little embarrassed at having his phone go off, and it's a message from his ghoul, Wesley, and he very quickly reads it and puts it back in his pocket. He nods at what the prince has said, and also by means of apology for being interrupted by his phone. He says, "I'm glad that you have confidence in me, and I will do my best to ensure that the city continues to flourish, particularly now that we have hopefully a long-lasting respite from the ills surrounding us. If you'll excuse me, my prince, the groundskeeper need a little bit of time to make sure that this is ready for the opening ceremony tomorrow. I am sure that there will be some media coverage here, which no doubt Mr. Innocenti will revel in, but it will be, I hope, a beacon to others around the city, both day and night. And obviously, you are welcome to join the garden at any point. With your permission, I would like to extend my domain to include the garden area. And obviously, I have taken security measures to make sure that this garden is a safe yet public area for everybody who needs to visit."
I agree. It'll be good for the kindred to be reminded about what was lost and what was gained by these unfortunate events. And it is such a lovely garden, too. It would be a shame if people weren't able to visit it regularly.
Cameron will gesture for the prince to follow him back towards the gate, and as they walk through the gate, the security guards again open the gates for them and lock them up behind them. Cameron will go to the prince's car and open the car door for him, and he'll say, "It was a pleasure meeting you again, my prince, and I hope that you will find as much time as you can to enjoy the garden once the formalities have passed."
As the prince will smile and say, "It will be a delight, Mr. Forsythe. I cannot wait to see Elysium you're going to put." With that, he will give a polite nod and turn around and return back to his car. The ghoul will start to get out, but the prince will hold up his hand and simply open the door for himself and get inside. The car will ignite, and it will pull away from the parking spot and enter the flow of traffic for the city of Reno once more.
Cameron will pick up his phone, call back Wesley, his ghoul, and as he walks off in the direction of the casino, which isn't too far away, he can be heard having a short, rather cursed but polite conversation with Wesley as he walks into the night. And our scene ends.